It has been a long night.
Abdul El-Sayed has just defeated the political establishment.
Yesterday was the highest turnout for Democrats in the history of a Michigan primary.
He rejected corporate PAC money.
Money out of politics. Put money in your pocket. Pass Medicare for all. It is a big movement.
He was outspent by tens of millions of dollars. And on the 5th of August 2026, he won Michigan's Democratic primary for the United States Senate.
A true fighter, and that is what people want. Abdul El-Sayed will be our next U.S. Senator.
Here is a guy who took on the entire Democratic establishment in Michigan, okay? Took on the entire national Democratic establishment, okay? And then took on $70 million of super PAC and outside funding, about 30 million of it coming from AIPAC.
Now, El-Sayed has to do something harder. He has to beat the Republican Party in a swing state in November, which raises the question this film is actually about. Not, can El-Sayed win? That's a poll question, and it changes every week. The real question isn't really about El-Sayed at all. Donald Trump spent a decade proving that an outsider could seize power by attacking the establishment itself, rejecting its money and turning every attack against him into fuel. Did Trump just show America how modern politics actually works now? Or did he only show the Republican Party? That's the experiment this film is about. Abdul El-Sayed just became its first real test case. To understand what's happened in Michigan, you have to understand who did it. Abdul El-Sayed is a doctor. His parents emigrated from Egypt to the United States. He was raised in Michigan, the state that would eventually decide whether to send him to Washington. Before he was a candidate, he was a public health official. At just 30 years old, he became Detroit's health director. He inherited a department stripped down by the city's bankruptcy. And within 2 years, he'd rebuilt vaccination programs and reopened public health clinics, right as neighboring Flint discovered its own water was poisoning its residents. Trust in Michigan's public institutions was collapsing. El-Sayed spent those years trying to hold what was left of it together. By the time he left, the department looked nothing like the one he'd inherited. The part of his record even his critics don't dispute. In 2017, he did something unusual for a health official.
Health Director Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is stepping down from his position.
He quit and ran for governor.
The pollsters who always get it right in Michigan, they already told us who to vote for. Bunch of people answering landlines in the middle of the day.
He lost badly in the Democratic primary. Most political careers don't survive a loss like that. His didn't end there. In the years since, El-Sayed built a reputation as one of the more confrontational figures in progressive politics.
And Mike Rogers, well, he's decided that he wants to focus on my name, my 11-letter first name. Now, Mike, I'm just going to remind you, if you don't know how to say the name, keep the name out your damn mouth. Or just call me Abdul. But I got some opinions about his name. See, it's very fitting for him, Rogers. Because that's his answer every time a corporation or Donald Trump tells him to do something. Mike, we need you to put a data center in the backyard. Roger. Mike, we need you to hike their prescription drug prices. Roger. Mike, we need you to rubber stamp this war we shouldn't be fighting. Roger. Mike, and this one's Donald Trump, I need you to lick these boots. Roger.
A doctor who talks like he's still arguing with a hospital board, not like he's trying to sound electable. He doesn't hedge his positions. He states them loudly to any camera that will point at him. If he wins in November, he becomes the first Muslim ever elected to the United States Senate. None of that, the medical degree, the immigrant parents, the lost governor's race, explains how. He beat a 4-term congresswoman backed by the governor, 2 senators, and the Senate's own Democratic leader. To understand that, we must look at something else, a political style that has nothing to do with medicine, or public health, or policy of any kind. A style most people associate with the exact opposite side of American politics. Set the policies aside for a moment. Forget left and right. Look only at the mechanics, the actual moves. Donald Trump's method was never a secret. Attack the establishment of your own party.
What a stiff. Lindsey Graham. By the way, he's registered 0 in the polls. 0. He's on television all the time.
Attack the media that covers you unfavorably.
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
Turn every investigation, every criticism, every dollar spent against you into proof that the system is afraid of you.
They don't give the support that we really need.
Okay,
now,
but I'm still
I think
confused.
I'm better off maybe without their support if you want to know the truth.
Speak directly to voters, not through the institutions that used to control that access.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down. Anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
And when a race gets close, don't wait for the result. Call the process itself corrupt.
But the socialist candidate ran up big margins against the communist candidate in Detroit, and I was saying it probably is corrupt. You know, it's probably corrupt. I don't know who the hell they wanted. I couldn't care less.
It worked. It didn't just win Trump an election, it rewired how a serious chunk of American politics gets won. Now look at what El-Sayed actually did. He ran against his own party's establishment. He turned Haley Stevens' institutional backing into a weakness, telling voters that a candidate propped up by $60 million in outside money wasn't fighting for them.
What could $60 million do for a community in Detroit? What could $60 million mean for erasing medical debt? I'll tell you, $6 billion it could erase. But they want to spend it to get the congresswoman elected. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're going to have a safe seat doing their bidding instead of yours. Every single dollar that DTE is spending is a down payment on knowing that they can raise your rates. Every single dollar that Blue Cross Blue Shield spends in this race is a down payment on raising your premium. All right.
He refused corporate PAC contributions entirely. And when tens of millions of dollars flooded in against him anyway, he didn't hide from it. He made it the center of his campaign.
I think if you like politics as usual, I'm not your choice. But if you want money out and you want money in your pocket and you want guaranteed health care, maybe I am. But that's because I have the courage to have the conversation about what politics ought to be. I'm not trying to hedge to figure out what corporation is going to pay for my campaign ads. Chances are, before and after this package, you're probably going to get an ad that is touting my opponent. That ad was not paid for by her campaign. That ad was likely paid for by a PAC or a corporate PAC that's funneling money because they know they've traded that money into those campaigns to get trade-offs on the back end.
And like Trump, he talks straight to camera, not through anyone.
You know, when AIPAC watches this, come for me. See what happens. Come for me.
Same weapon, opposite direction. This film isn't arguing El-Sayed is Trump for the left. That's too simple, and it misses the actual experiment. Trump didn't invent attacking your own party's establishment or speaking straight past the media to voters. What he did was prove those tools work at national scale. So the real question isn't whether the left can have its own Trump, it's whether Trump invented a political method or simply mastered one before everyone else. If El-Sayed's victory is an exception, Michigan changes very little. But if the same methods work on the other side of American politics, then this story is evidence that Trump may have changed the way politics is won. By the most reliable account, roughly $70 million was spent trying to stop Abdul El-Sayed from winning this primary. The single largest source, AIPAC's political arm, the United Democracy Project, which alone spent just over $30 million against him. Add a dark money group called the Center for Democratic Priorities, another $6.5 million, funneled through a non-profit structure that doesn't have to disclose its own donors. Add every other PAC backing Haley Stevens, and the outside total against El-Sayed crosses $60 million, on top of Stevens' own $11.9 million in direct fundraising. El-Sayed's own campaign raised $14.5 million directly from individual donors, not corporations, not a single corporate PAC check, because he refused to take one. The obvious question is how he survived that gap, but it's the wrong question. The more interesting one is why spending tens of millions of dollars against him may have actually made him stronger. Here's the mechanism. The United Democracy Project's funders aren't anonymous. They include hedge fund manager Paul Singer, Patriots owner Robert Kraft, asset manager Mark Rowan, entertainment executive Haim Saban, and real estate developer David Cordish. Each one, individually, is a plausible line in a very different kind of campaign ad. Not, here's what my opponent believes, but here's who's paying to stop you hearing from me. El-Sayed didn't have to invent an establishment conspiracy. He had an actual list of billionaires spending money to point to. Every dollar spent against him became evidence that Haley Stevens, congressional experience and all, wasn't fighting for Michigan voters. She was being propped up by people who didn't want those voters to have a choice. The size of the spending wasn't a threat to that story. It was proof of it. The more AIPAC spent, the more the story held up. Stevens' institutional strength, the endorsements, the party infrastructure, was supposed to be an advantage. In this race, El-Sayed converted it directly into his own campaign material. Every asset that should have made her look prepared, instead made her look installed.
In the so-called purple state of Michigan, the people of that state stood up to an unprecedented onslaught of billionaire money. And despite that onslaught of money, they voted for a progressive candidate who has the guts to take on the oligarchs and fight for working people and for a sane and moral foreign policy.
AIPAC isn't backing down. Its response to criticism over the spending: as proud pro-Israel Americans, we will never apologize for participating in the political process. The group said its members remain determined to ensure that voters reject Dr. El-Sayed in November, which means the $70 million experiment isn't over. There's a version of this story that stops at the money and the mechanics. It shouldn't. Trump built his political identity by being deliberately abrasive, unwilling to apologize, unwilling to soften, treating every norm of political etiquette as something to be broken on camera. For a huge number of voters, that transgression read as strength. El-Sayed is also abrasive, also confrontational, also unwilling to soften his language for a room that wants him to, which sets up a real test. Does identical political behavior get read the same way, regardless of who's performing it? After his primary win, Trump called him a man of hate and a communist.
And the polls were wrong again last night when they thought it would be a landslide victory for a hater of Jews and a hater of Israel. This guy hates Jews. Somebody said, oh, that's a little strong. No, he hates Jews and he hates Israel. Abdul El-Sayed.
The Republican National Committee went further. Spokesperson Natalie Baldassari called him a jihadi jester. El-Sayed's response was specific, not defensive.
And to all of my sisters and brothers of the Jewish faith, or any faith at all, or no faith at all, I want you to know that my commitment to your safety, my commitment to Jewish safety, is the same commitment that I have to the safety of my own daughters.
Then he redirected, straight at Trump's own record.
My name is not raising your gas prices. My name is not taking us to war. My name is not the reason you can't afford your groceries. You know what it is? Their BS policies.
It's the same confrontational register Trump himself made famous. Refuse to apologize, attack back immediately, turn the criticism into material. When Trump escalated personally, targeting El-Sayed's wife, El-Sayed didn't retreat.
What was the first thing you felt in that moment when Donald Trump decided he was going to go after your wife in such a disgusting way?
Come at us, bro. Yeah. My wife is more strength than he has ever had.
That's not the language of a candidate playing defense. It's the Trump Playbook, word for word. Which is exactly why the double standard, if there is one, is worth taking seriously rather than dismissing. If the mechanics are identical, the same refusal to apologize, the same redirection, the same appetite for the fight, then any difference in how each man is received isn't about behavior at all. It's about who's allowed to behave that way. A US Senate nominee just got called a jihadi jester by the party that currently controls the Senate, the House, and the White House. Whatever else this film argues, that fact belongs in it, without softening. The film isn't here to settle whether the double standard is fair. It's here to note that it exists, and that El-Sayed is running his entire campaign directly through it. Winning the primary didn't prove El-Sayed's model works. It only proved it works in a Democratic primary, against Democratic voters using Democratic anger. And that anger was real and specific. Haley Stevens ran the resume that used to be the whole game. Congressional experience, corporate fundraising relationships, institutional endorsements. That resume would have won primary races 2 decades ago. It didn't win this one. That's the establishment's actual problem, and it's bigger than one race. The resume that was supposed to be disqualifying for El-Sayed, no elected office, no fundraising network, no institutional backing, turned out to be the resume voters wanted. The resume that was supposed to be reassuring for Stevens turned out to be the one voters punished. Which brings the film to its central reversal. To beat Mike Rogers in November, El-Sayed needs something the primary never required: the very people that resume belonged to. Governor Gretchen Whitmer backed Stevens. So did former Senator Debbie Stabenow, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, and the retiring senator El-Sayed hopes to replace, Gary Peters. Every one of them now has to decide how hard to fight for the man who beat their candidate, and El-Sayed has to decide how hard to ask them. El-Sayed ran a very far leftist campaign to win the primary. Winning the general election in a genuine swing state means becoming something else, broader, less confrontational with his own coalition, reaching independents who had no reason to show up for a Democratic primary fight. This is where the Trump comparison stops holding up cleanly, and the film has to say so. Trump never had to do this. He took over the Republican Party by defeating it, then simply kept the coalition that elected him, expanded by voters who liked the fight. He didn't need Republican elites to love him. He needed them to fear crossing him, and he never needed a divided swing state electorate to hand him a state he could otherwise lose outright. El-Sayed doesn't have that luxury. Michigan is a swing state, not a safe seat. If Whitmer, Stabenow, Schumer, and the voters who backed Stevens sit this one out, even quietly, the seat is gone, and the experiment ends. Which brings this back to where it started. Except everything about the question has now inverted. In the primary, the establishment was useful to Abdul El-Sayed. Every dollar it spent against him, every endorsement it gave his opponent, became proof of exactly the story he was telling. The establishment worked best for him as an enemy. In the general election, that stops being true. He now needs pieces of the same establishment to win. Whitmer's operation, Stabenow's network, Schumer's machine, the voters who spent the summer being told he was too far left to trust. The thing that was fuel in the primary has to become, at least partly, an ally in the general. That reversal is the actual hinge of this film. The polling reflects exactly how unresolved that is. As of mid-August, the race is a genuine toss-up. Some polls put El-Sayed narrowly ahead, others put Mike Rogers ahead, and the two major prediction markets split roughly 57-43 and 60-40 in El-Sayed's favor, which is another way of saying nobody actually knows. So the film doesn't end with, will El-Sayed win? It ends with a harder question, because it's the one his entire campaign has to answer between now and November. Can a candidate build a winning coalition by convincing voters the political system is broken, and then turn around and ask that same system to help him govern? If he wins, the thesis holds. An outsider can turn confrontation, rejection of political money, and a direct fight with the establishment into power, from either side of American politics. And even after asking that establishment for help at the very end, if he loses, the thesis isn't disproven, it just gets narrower. Maybe those rules only work once, in a primary, against a divided party, and stop working the moment you need the party whole again. Either way, the man who opened this film by beating the machine is now asking American politics the only question that was ever really at stake. Did Trump change the rules, or did he just win first?